Part 21. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 201. The emperor hosted a banquet in the palace to entertain the king of Zhenbei. The important officials of the court above the third rank, the king of Ling, and the king of Xian were all present. Only the third prince was unable to attend because he was injured. However, the emperor did not indulge him. At least in front of the king of Zhenbei, he still had to make the necessary statement. Chu Xuanyi, take people to the prince of Jin's mansion immediately and bring Tianyan to the palace to apologize to the king of Zhenbei. I obey your order. Chu Xuanyi took the order and left. I dare not. The king of Zhenbei hurriedly stopped him. Your Majesty dash. My dear minister, you don't have to stop me. The emperor waved his hand. Tianyan got into trouble the day before yesterday. I had him beaten with 30 boards. These 2 days, I ordered him to stay in the palace to reflect on his mistakes. The king of Zhenbei finally understood why the king of Ling and the king of Xian were both present at the banquet, but Chu Tianyan was not there. It turned out that he was recuperating in the palace. The prince of Zhenbei has always been thoughtful. At this moment, he couldn't help but think in his heart that the third prince had been punished by the emperor for accidentally killing the princess. Unexpectedly, he was punished again recently. Among the princes, is the third prince considered to have fallen out of favor? Concubine Feng was demoted to Qingyan Palace and deprived of the title of concubine. The third prince was demoted to a prince of a county. Now if he has lost the emperor's heart, then there is definitely no hope for him to compete for the throne. Hundreds of people in the Ling family are still in the Tianlao waiting to be executed in the autumn, so the fifth prince's hope for the throne is not great. Then there are only these two left. The prince of Zhenbei raised his head and glanced at the two princes opposite him calmly, thinking secretly who he should support. The queen and her son definitely have a better chance of winning, but who can figure out the emperor's mind? If the prince who holds military power stands in the wrong position. Prince Rong. The emperor held the wine cup in his hand and turned to look at Prince Rong at the table. How old is your little princess this year? The sudden question made Prince Rong startled. He subconsciously tightened his wine cup and replied respectfully, Your Majesty, my daughter is only 14 years old. The emperor hummed, still young. Prince Rong breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, his daughter will be 15 in a few days, but he already understood the meaning of the emperor's question. He was afraid that he was going to marry his daughter to Qi Yun. Prince Rong did not want to marry the king of Zhenbei, so he concealed this point. Anyway, no matter how many days it is, if she is not 15, she is 14, and it is not considered deceiving the emperor. The emperor did not say anything more. During the banquet, the emperor and his ministers drank and talked about personal matters. It seemed that they were having a good time. In less than half an hour, the imperial guards came to report that the third prince had arrived outside the palace. The emperor ordered someone to bring him in. Chu Tianyan entered the palace with the help of the guards. His steps were slow and difficult. Everyone's eyes on him were like sharp swords, piercing his whole body. Chu Tianyan bowed respectfully to the emperor. Even the action of kneeling down seemed extremely painful. His face was pale and sweat oozed from his forehead. He looked very bad. Stand up, the emperor said majestically. Tianyan, your father-in-law is here. You should apologize to him. Chu Tianyan froze for a moment, then responded respectfully. He stood up slowly. He could feel that everyone was looking at him. There was sympathy, pity, ridicule, and even gloating in those eyes. Chu Tianyan took a deep breath and restrained the violent ups and downs of his heart. It doesn't matter. He gritted his teeth and thought, you can enjoy watching the joke, after all, there are not many such opportunities. Chu Tianyan thought of his plan, the throne that was just around the corner, and the saying when God wants to give a man a great responsibility, he must first make him suffer and work hard, and he felt that this was a test from God, and all the eyes seemed to become irrelevant in an instant. Anyway, when he ascends the throne, all those who laugh at him today will die. Turning around, he bowed deeply to the king of Genbei. Father-in-law, I will prepare some wine in the palace tonight, and sincerely apologize to you, father-in-law, and please honor me. His attitude was very humble, thinking that he was just a junior, and he didn't have the value of a prince at all, which would make it impossible for the king of Genbei to refuse, otherwise it would be a deliberate embarrassment. Of course, in front of the emperor and all the ministers today, the king of Genbei would never make things difficult for him, so he said lightly, Your Highness, if you are not feeling well, go back to the palace to recuperate. After the palace banquet is over, I will talk to your Highness in detail. Their invitation and acceptance seemed fair and above board, and would not give people the handle of the vassal king and the prince to privately give and take, and the imperial censors in the court could not find fault. The emperor probably thought of Chu Tianyan's injuries and quickly ordered someone to send him back to the palace to rest. As for the appointment of the father-in-law and son-in-law to meet in the evening to apologize, he did not say anything. The murder of the princess of Jing County was complicated and affected the face of the royal family. Naturally, it was not appropriate to explain it in detail in front of so many people. Besides, it was Chu Tianyan's own business to apologize, and it was reasonable for him to solve it himself. It was impossible for him, the king of a country, to solve it for him. $window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 202. After the palace banquet, King Genbei followed the emperor to the imperial study room to report on his duties, and reported one by one all the major and minor affairs in the Mianbei fief over the past 2 years. The monarch and his ministers maintained just the right distance and sense of proportion. The ministers were courteous and the king was benevolent and righteous. There was no smoke in the whole process. The emperor expressed satisfaction with the process of the conversation, and King Genbei expressed his peace of mind at the emperor's satisfactory attitude. When the atmosphere was relaxed and joyful, the king of Genbei spoke at the right time. I only have a concubine named Qi Lan. This year has been 28 years, and I have not met a suitable son-in-law in Mianbei. This time I bring you to see the emperor. If the court there is a suitable young upstart who is not yet married, and I am begging the emperor to give her a chance to get married. This sentence has lowered identity to the extreme. When his legitimate daughter Qi Ying died, in order to show that he had no complaints against the royal family, he willingly sent his concubine to let the emperor make the decision. Although the concubine was worthless, what mattered was his attitude. Secondly, since she is a concubine, she naturally does not dare to think about the princes, and other powerful people. If there are young ministers in the court, they can propose marriage, whether they are 5th or 7th rank, or if there is a suitable young master in the minister's family, he will not pick it. Thirdly, since it was left to the emperor to make the decision, he also indirectly expressed that he was not standing behind any prince and was only loyal to the emperor. The emperor just smiled and said, I will ask later to see whose young master has reached the marriageable age. Thank you, Your Majesty. The conversation between the monarch and his ministers finally ended. In the evening, the king of Genbei resigned from the palace and went to the Jinjun palace with his bodyguard. Chu Tianyan was resting in bed in the palace. When he heard the report from his servants, he said softly, Take him to the study. Yes. Adai served Chu Tianyan and drank the medicine, then whispered, King Genbei brought his legitimate son Qi Yun. This is an opportunity for us, an opportunity to help the imperial concubine and the 6th princess recover from defeat. Chu Tianyan drank the medicine and said in a gloomy voice, What do you mean? Let King Genbei propose marriage to Yuling for his son. The sixth princess has been raised in King Ian Hall for so many days, and her body and bones should be fine. However, the emperor has never mentioned the sixth princess in these days. Even on the Queen Mother's birthday, he did not let the imperial concubine and the sixth princess come out to congratulate the Queen Mother. It can be seen that the emperor's heart is as hard as iron. Adai said in a deep voice, for the present plan, only by letting King Genbei speak can the imperial concubine and the sixth princess regain their former glory. As long as King Genbei succeeds in marrying the sixth princess, the emperor will definitely restore his status as a noble concubine in order to save King Genbei's face. After all, Genbei Wang was a vassal king with a lot of troops. It was impossible for his legitimate son to marry a lowly concubine. His mother should be at least one of the 4 concubines. In this way, even if concubine Feng cannot be completely restored, it is very possible for her to be promoted back to the concubine position from Zaiyi. Chu Tianyan carefully stood up from the bed, letting Ade put on his robe, and twisted a wet towel to clean his face and wipe his hands. The king of Genbei may not agree. Ade said, since he has come to this imperial city, he can't help but disagree. Hearing this, Chu Tianyan looked at her deeply. Ade, do you think I can sit in that position? It's definitely possible, Ade replied respectfully, that position must be yours, and no one else can even think about it. Chu Tianyan smiled, you are right. No one can sit in that position except me. With that said, he turned around and walked out of the room, and walked toward the study step by step with the help of the guards. Ade was right. Now that the king of Genbei is here, he has to go into this muddy water or not. He has no choice. King Genbei was sitting in the study at this time. He took the teacup brought by the servant and turned his head silently to look at Chu Tianyan's study. The door was open and had not been closed since he entered. So when the guards helped Chu Tianyan come over, he soon heard the footsteps coming from outside, put down the teacup, got up and walked out. His Royal Highness King Jin. Chu Tianyan stopped, looked up at King Genbei, and bowed slightly, father-in-law. I dare not accept such a great gift from His Highness Genbei dynasty side avoided. I really want to know what happened to Ying and I hope your highness can tell you in detail. Father-in-law, please come inside. King Genbei turned around and walked into the study. Chu Tianyan went in together and told the guards, this king and my father-in-law have something to discuss in detail. No one will be seen, and no one is allowed to come even half a step closer to the study. Yes. Chu Tianyan raised his hand and closed the study door. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 203. In the evening, the eldest princess's mansion was quiet and harmonious. The climate is hot, and even the wind blowing in the air is filled with heat. Only the flower hall in the heart of the lake can enjoy some coolness. There is a faint fragrance floating in the air, and the sound of the piano echoes, low and slow like the gurgling of running water, like pouring out words, melodious and melodious. Chu Qinghuang was wearing a light-colored singlet, leaning against the beauty, looking at the young man playing the piano casually. Although his understanding of chess skills was not high, Fu Kang had a good talent in music. After learning for less than half a month, I can already play 2 simple pieces of music by myself, and the tone is natural and smooth, with almost no obvious jerkiness. After the song is played, the lingering sound lingers. Fu Kang lowered his eyes and stared at Kingxian for a long time. After a moment, he slowly raised his eyes to look at Chu Qinghuang. His dark eyes were clean and clear, and there was a hint of nervousness and expectation. Not bad. Chu Qinghuang praised his disciples for their good performance. Practice a few more times in the past 2 days. Once you are familiar with it, you can integrate your inner power and turn it into a sound blade that can hurt people. Once he has mastered the music, it is not difficult for him to infuse his inner strength, and he can easily master it. Fu Kang lowered his head in response. Your Highness, Minjia walked across the pontoon bridge on the lake and came over holding an invitation. This is an invitation sent by someone from Prince Xian's mansion. Your Highness is invited to come over tomorrow to enjoy the flowers. Chu Qing Huang took the invitation, opened it, looked at it, and threw it aside. I know. My maid, please leave. Fu Kang stood up and walked over, knelt down on the cushion beside the tea table in front of Chu Qing Huang, rolled up his sleeves, took 2 teacups, held the pot and poured tea. Princess Xian invites me to visit the palace tomorrow to enjoy the flowers. Fu Kang, the queen, and her son have begun to win over me. Taking the tea from Fu Kang, Chu Qing Huang sighed lightly. Since I last participated in the wine tasting, poetry club, I haven't been to the poetry club tea party for a long time. Do you want to go? Fu Kang was silent for a moment. If the master goes, then the subordinates will go. There is no telling whether you like it or not. After all, some things should be done. Since the queen and her son have taken action, they should naturally respond. Chu Qing Huang closed her eyes and took a sip of tea, turned to look at the sparkling lake, and said in a leisurely voice, the queen's ability to sit firmly in the palace for so many years proves that she is by no means an impulsive person. Princess Xian is her daughter-in-law, and the queen must. I've already mentioned it, and it can be seen from Grandma Gu's words and deeds in the morning that she is quite disciplined. Therefore, nothing unpleasant should happen during the trip to Prince Xian's mansion. The most she could do was see how Prince Xian and his wife planned to win over her. Fu Kang nodded, yes. Fu Kang. Chu Qing Huang suddenly raised her eyebrows and looked at him. How do you think the queen will win over me? Fu Kang was silent for a moment, then slowly shook his head. I don't know. You can take a guess. Fu Kang pursed his lips and whispered, there are already 5 annoying guys in the master's backyard. If there are more, it will be overcrowded. 5 annoying guys, Chu Qing Huang said in a subtle tone. Every man in the world doesn't want to have 3 palaces and 6 courtyards to hug each other, not to mention having fun with beauties, but just watching so many beauties wandering in front of their eyes, it's also a visual enjoyment. How can it be annoying? Fu Kang said nothing. Although I am a woman, I have done more than 1 or 2 things that break the world. I don't mind imitating those powerful men and living in 3 palaces and 6 courtyards, with a beautiful woman in my arms. Chu Qing Huang said lightly, after all, Master Confucius said that food and sex are the same, and people's natural love for beauty should not be suppressed, otherwise it will be bad for the body. What do you think? Fu Kang didn't want to say anything. But when the master asked questions, he had to speak. My subordinates feel, it's annoying when there are too many people. Fu Kang frowned, it's very annoying. What's bothering you? It's very annoying to keep chattering. Chu Qing Huang's tone was a little more playful, really. Master is a person who does important things. He should not be obsessed with the love between his children and his daughter, and should not be bewitched by beauty. He should. Fu Kang finally found a legitimate reason the next time. His voice was small but confident. You should have a strong will. Abandon all temptations. If someone with evil intentions uses beauty to seduce the master, the consequences will be disastrous. So. Chu Qing Huang pursed her lips and listened calmly as he racked his brains to come up with reasons to rebut. The corners of his lips twitched slightly, and Fu Kang, who lowered his head, didn't notice at all. But everyone knows that I love beauty, Chu Qing Huang said. If I suddenly act calm, determined, and indifferent to beauty, will it make people suspicious? Fu Kang was speechless for a moment. It seems right. But King Zhenbei should have gone to the Jinjun Palace at this time. Chu Qing Huang changed the subject at the right time and said in a casual tone, you can't guess the motives of the Queen and Prince Xian, so you might as well guess what Chu Tianyan will do next. Do what? Fukang stopped thinking about the beauty and replied calmly, Chu Tianyan will definitely take the opportunity to win over King Zhenbei and promise him enough benefits. Chu Qinghuang hummed. But Chu Tianyan is too stupid, and all his plans are whimsical. Fukang said in an indifferent voice, if the king of Zhenbei really joins his camp, it will just be Chu Tianyan's companion on Huangquan Road. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 204. The lotus flowers bloom beautifully in summer. Most of the mansions of the royal family and dignitaries have large gardens. Some people like orchids and will carefully cultivate various rare and exquisite orchids. Some people love chrysanthemums and there will be people in the mansion to take care of the chrysanthemum garden. Some people love lotus and will plant a large lotus in the lake, which will bloom beautifully in summer. Every time the right season comes, the ladies of the dignitaries will enjoy the flowers and drink tea in the garden and invite the ladies of the noble families to gather at the mansion. Some people do it purely to kill time, but most people do it for a purpose. The reason for Chu Qinghuang to receive the invitation was to enjoy the lotus. Originally, there was only one invitation. Later, I don't know if Princess Xian suddenly remembered something and sent 5 more that night. 5 identical invitations with the same handwriting, obviously from the same person, but Chu Qinghuang unfolded the invitations one by one and saw the polite words Chu Gongziqi, Qi Gongziqi, Hong Gongziqi and so on, and was silent for a while. The 5 young masters who were called to receive the invitations also stood quietly and took their own invitations one by one. Young Master Hong Yu frowned, looking at the strange name on the invitation. When did this young master's surname become Hong? What's your surname? Wen Zhan asked casually. Of course my surname is Hong. Yu was about to blurt out the words, but when he looked up and glared at Wen Zhan, why should I tell you my surname? Wen Zhan looked at him silently. As if someone's surname was a secret. Except for Hong Yu, all the 5 young masters living in the west courtyard know everything about them. Qi Ling, who had just returned from the military camp, said unhurriedly, I am the bastard of the king of Zhenbei, and Wen Zhan is the bastard of the Wen family. Zhong Zongjin is the concubine of the Shen family, but Hong Yu's identity is still unknown. We have reason to suspect that you sneaked into the eldest princess's mansion for evil purposes. You are all bastards, and you still have the nerve to talk. Hong Yu sneered, I am a legitimate son, and I am not the same type of person as you. Wen Zhan. Qi Ling. Zongjin. Do you want to beat him? Qi Ling frowned, this kid needs a beating lately. Hong Yu quietly moved towards Chu Qinghuang, your highness loves me the most. How dare you touch me? Let's get back to the subject. Chu Ling Chuan held the invitation in his hand. Although Princess Xian sent us an invitation, I don't think they really welcome us, and our status is really not suitable for making a big show of being guests. What do you think? Woolen cloth. The others nodded together. They had reason to suspect that the reason why the Xianwang mansion sent 5 invitations to invite them to come together was entirely because the last time they followed the prince to visit the Ling family, the commotion was so loud that all the major mansions were still in fear. In order to avoid the same thing from happening again, the Xianwang princess sent them invitations. Whether they went or not, at least it was enough to give the eldest princess face. And even if they really went with the prince, because the Xianwang princess had explained it in advance, the servants of the palace would not show too much fuss, and they also saved their own face. But this way of saving makes people feel that it is not in line with the style of the royal family. I will go with the prince. Hong Yu waved his hand and made the final decision, you stay in the mansion to look after the house, those who should study, those who should go to the military camp should go to the military camp, and those who should look at the account books should look at the account books, and you don't have to argue with me. Who argued with you? Several young masters looked at him silently, and their expressions were really hard to describe. They found that the little brat was too deeply into the play. He knew that it was impossible to compete for favor, but he still acted like he couldn't stop competing for favor. "What are you looking at?" Hong Yu glanced at them, jealous or dissatisfied. Just at this moment, Fu Kang, who was going to hand over intelligence with Fu Feng, Fu Ying, and the other four, came in from outside and said respectfully, "The king of Jinbei just left the prince of Jin's mansion." The two had a secret conversation in the study for an hour. Chu Qing Huang hummed, without any emotion on his face, and said lightly, "Go back and rest, don't stand here and get in the way." "An eyesore?" Hong Yu frowned. They were all handsome young men who were loved by everyone and made flowers bloom. How could they be an eyesore? He was about to protest, but the others had already bowed and left, and Qi Ling and Shen Zongjin each carried one of Hong Yu's shoulders and dragged him out. "What are you doing?" Hong Yu started to use the kicking tactics again, flapping his feet. "Let me go. Let me go." No one paid any attention to him, and the two dragged him away from Dongshang Pavilion easily. "Qi Ling, Shen Zongjin, you are so presumptuous. Let me go. Let me go." Chu Qing Huang listened to the voice gradually fading away, and frowned slightly. Hong Yu's temperament is more like his father, but not exactly the same. As for his mother's temperament, he did not inherit a single bit. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 205. Fu Kang wanted to speak but stopped. "What do you want to ask?" Chu Qing Huang looked at him and understood what his expression meant. "Hong Yu is the only legitimate son of King Yu. His mother was the female guard beside my mother in the early years and also the secret guard camp born. He is indifferent and taciturn, colder than an iceberg. Their marriage was arranged by my mother." Fu Kang pursed his lips and hummed, remaining silent. From this point of view, the relationship between the annoying Gai Kurha and his master is obviously closer than that of several others. "But I used to live with my parents on Kangyun Mountain, and I would go back to Dongling Palace to live for a period of time every year. Hong Yu always stayed in the Yawang fiefdom and rarely went to Dongling Imperial City." Chu Qing Huang took a sip of tea. "With such a cheerful temperament, he can hold back and not make trouble. He is probably staying at home to practice in seclusion. Hong Yu has unfathomable abilities at a young age, which shows that he is not a playful person by nature." Fu Kang's eyebrows moved slightly, and he suddenly wanted to know what his master's life was like in Kangshan Yun's hang. After a moment of silence, he hesitated and said, "Master is also practicing martial arts on the mountain." "Yes." Chu Qing Huang nodded and leaned against the railing. "My father is very powerful. At first, he taught me martial arts in person. Later, after I gradually understood it, I competed with the masters on the mountain, just like you used to do in the fight with others in the dark pavilion is the same. You also have to go through 5 levels and kill 6 generals. However, I can only fight with them in one click, and I will not kill anyone." Fu Kang hummed, remembering Chu Qing Huang's previous scene of dealing with a group of snakes in the suburbs. "Master is also good at controlling beasts. There are dense forests on Kangyun Mountain, and there are many ferocious beasts in the dense forests." Chu Qing Huang said in a calm voice, "They have always played well with me." Fu Kang. "Master is so powerful, he can play well with those ferocious beasts." Chu Qing Huang glanced at him. "Being friends with animals is an innate talent. You can't learn it, so I have no intention of teaching you." Fu Kang was silent for a moment. "My subordinates have also learned this." "Huh?" Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows and then said calmly, "You learned something different. What is taught in the dark pavilion is only how to deal with large carnivorous animals, how to deal with dangerous situations, and even how to fight with ferocious beasts to survive in dangerous situations. These are all compulsory skills for shadow guards, and they are completely different from the beast control she mentioned. My days in the mountains were very good. Every morning when I got up, I could see the clouds and mist in the mountains, just like a fairyland." Chu Qing Huang's body was languid, and his eyebrows were stained with memories. The air in the mountains is good, so I got up early to sit down. Being at the highest point of the mountain and absorbing the essence of heaven and earth is also very helpful for practicing martial arts. Fuekang was silent, and couldn't help but yearn for it in his heart. However, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth? Can martial arts practitioners really absorb the essence of heaven and earth? He frowned and looked at Chu Ching Huang with an expression of eagerness for knowledge. Should my subordinates get up earlier to meditate in the future? Chu Ching Huang was silent. It should be that when you wake up early, you will be physically energetic and in a good mental state, so that you can achieve better results by practicing martial arts, and you can concentrate more by finding a quiet place without being disturbed by yourself. As for whether you can absorb the essence of the world, this is a matter of benevolence and wisdom, but there is no need to delve too deeply into it. Yes. Chu Ching Huang put down the teacup and got up to take a bath. It's getting late, go to bed early. Fuekang followed. Half an hour later. The two people who came back from bathing one after another were still in the same posture as before, one leaning on the head of the bed and the other kneeling beside him. Chu Ching Huang looked at Fuekang, go to sleep. Fuekang raised his eyes and looked at her, but hesitated to speak. Chu Ching Huang asked calmly, what? Subordinate. Fuekang pulled at his clothes nervously, subordinate, you are ready. What's ready? Chu Ching Huang was puzzled at first, but then saw the heroic and righteous expression on his face, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, and suddenly understood what he meant. Raising her hand to the center of her eyebrows, she said calmly, I am a person who does important things, and I cannot indulge in beauty. Fuekang. Although you are a shadow guard, your face is really good. Chu Ching Huang stretched out her hand to lift his chin and looked at it carefully. You sleep with me every night. What if I sleep with you one day, I can't control myself and I molest you, what should I do? When Fuekang heard this, he couldn't help but blush again. He wanted to say that he was willing to be molested, but the words he himself said in the evening were still ringing in his ears, as if they had given him a hard slap in the face. Don't think so wildly. Chu Ching Huang let him go, her voice calm and calm, sleep. Fuekang lowered his head, yes. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 206. Princess Xian was the youngest granddaughter of the current imperial concubine Yu Jiyuan, and her maiden name was Yu Jingmiao. When the queen chooses a princess for her son, she must choose a daughter from a scholarly family, with a gentle and calm temperament, well educated, dignified and virtuous. Even the emperor feels that the daughter of the Taifu and the emperor's legitimate son are a match made in heaven. It has to be said that although King Xian Chu Tianqiu's bargaining chip is not as good as that of concubine Duan and his son and the concubine and his son, the facts have proved that a patient, well-behaved, well-educated mother and a dignified, virtuous and non-troublesome princess are better candidates for each other. It's obviously more important to him. The sixth princess caused trouble and offended the eldest princess, causing her mother and daughter to fall out of favor and be demoted. Princess Jin was stabbed to death by her husband for causing chaos in the palace, causing him to instantly turn against King Zhenbei, and he himself was demoted. Concubine Duan and her son fell out of favor, and the Ling family lost power. It proves how important a mother and wife who are good at dealing with others are. Now he has become the biggest winner without doing anything, and the queen and his princess are indispensable. Especially the queen, who chose a granddaughter of the imperial concubine for her son to be the princess, and she could always give them advice and teach them what they should do and what they shouldn't do. King Xian was lucky to have such a mother. Regardless of whether he can ascend to the throne in the end, as long as he keeps his demeanor and mentality unchanged, at least he will not end up like concubine Duan and his son, as well as concubine Duan and his son. The summer was hot, and the morning heat was not severe. Chu Qinghuang arrived at Prince Xian's mansion in a carriage. Fukang and Hongyu got off the carriage and stood on the left and right behind Chu Qinghuang. After the housekeeper and the guard on duty outside the door saluted, they respectfully welcomed the eldest princess into the house. The princess is making arrangements in the garden. Her Royal Highness, the eldest princess, can go to the pavilion to sit down, drink tea and take a rest. The servants in the palace were extremely respectful and did not even dare to raise their heads to look at the two young masters beside the eldest princess. They were extremely polite. Yan, my maid will lead the way for your highness. Chu Qinghuang hummed lightly and walked through the winding corridor, admiring the scenery on both sides of the corridor. How many people did your princess invite today? Back to the eldest princess, the princess invited not many people, only 10 people. The maid spoke in a low voice with a respectful attitude. There are Miss Yunzu, the legitimate daughter of the Qin family, Miss Wanyu, the legitimate daughter of the Feng family, and Yunyao, the legitimate daughter of Prince Rong's palace. The princess, Miss Yongxian, the legitimate daughter of Prince Kang's palace, and the princess sister, Miss Jing'ai. Chu Qinghuang listened to the maid in silence, and her eyes fell on the garden not far away. There were 4 or 5 pretty girls sitting in the pavilion connected to the corridor. Several of them were princesses of the royal family who had not left the palace, and Yu Zheng, a close friend with a very close relationship. Surprisingly, Feng Wanyu, the legitimate daughter of the Feng family, arrived quite early. Chu Qinghuang walked into the garden, and after receiving the news, Princess Xian quickly brought the girls over to see the ceremony. According to royal etiquette, everyone except Princess Xian must bow to the eldest princess in a proper manner. My dearest daughter, please see Her Royal Highness the eldest princess. Her Royal Highness is 1,000 years old. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, no courtesy. Thank you, Your Highness. Princess Xian looked at the 2 people following Chu Qinghuang and smiled softly. I'll let someone take these 2 young masters to the east courtyard. My prince happens to be at home, and men have their own men to entertain them. Is that okay with you, Your Highness? I have to say that she is really flexible. It is really difficult for ordinary people to do this, for a majestic princess to be so polite to her male favorite. Chu Qinghuang turned around and asked calmly, do you 2 want to sit down with the male guests? I'm not going. Hongyu frowned, I want to stay with His Highness. Fukang pursed his lips, I don't want to go either. Princess Xian's smile narrowed slightly, but she still smiled gently and said, men and women are not close to each other, so it is better to separate them. Since men and women are not intimate, why did you send me an invitation? Hongyu frowned and looked at her dissatisfied. I didn't want to come at all. If you hadn't sent me a message, I would be sitting here right now. I'm playing on the swing at home. After the words fell, someone in the crowd suddenly let out a chuckle, and then several pairs of eyes turned around, and the laughter suddenly stopped. Why are you laughing? Hongyu raised his eyebrows and looked at the girl who was only 14 or 15 years old. Is it funny? The girl in pink hid aside and even covered her face with a fan in embarrassment. I couldn't control myself just now. I didn't mean to laugh at you. Don't be angry, sir. Hongyu was not angry, but Princess Xian's face seemed a little tense, and it could be seen that she was trying hard to maintain gentleness and calmness. Swing. Chu Qinghuang, a manly woman, actually likes such a sissy male favorite? Taking a gentle breath, Princess Xian smiled again. Your Highness, the eldest princess, please go and take a seat. The 2 young masters can follow if they want. I believe you ladies can understand. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 207. The ladies who came today were very tactful and understood Chu Qinghuang's behavior of openly bringing her male lover to the banquet. Whether they had participated in the suburban wine-drinking poetry gathering before or not, they were all afraid of Chu Qinghuang's actions recently. No one dared to offend her. After entering the Xianwang mansion, before Chu Qinghuang came, the Xianwang princess had warned several times that anyone who dared to offend the eldest princess in the palace today would not have any contact with him in the future, regardless of whether he could escape from the hands of the eldest princess. Therefore, the ladies were law-abiding and humble, and never foolishly provoked the eldest princess, and did not dare to show even a little dissatisfaction and hostility on their faces. A group of people surrounded the Xianwang princess and Chu Qinghuang and walked to the lakeside flower hall together. However, a kind face does not mean a kind heart. For example, Feng Wanyu, the legitimate daughter of the Feng family, who had completely fallen out with the eldest princess, walked among the noble ladies. Even though she bowed respectfully, she kept cursing Chu Qinghuang to death in her heart. She must die today. The queen thought she was smart and wanted her daughter-in-law to win over the eldest princess, thinking that this would allow her son to smoothly ascend to the throne of the crown prince. Humph, wishful thinking. If Chu Qinghuang, the bitch, died in the Xianwang mansion today, I wonder if the emperor would put everyone in the Xianwang mansion into death row from top to bottom. Chu Qinghuang suddenly stopped, and although the others were puzzled, they also stopped. Chu Qinghuang turned her head and looked at Feng Wanyu calmly. "Miss Feng." Your Highness," Feng Wanyu's heart skipped a beat, and she folded her hands in front of her abdomen, respectfully performing a standard noble lady's etiquette. "I wonder what your Highness has to say. If I ask you to slap yourself, will you resist or do it?" Feng Wanyu's face changed, and she looked up in disbelief. "Your Highness the Princess. I'm asking you a question." Chu Qinghuang looked at her coldly. "Will you resist or do it?" Feng Wanyu clenched her hands, with a tone of forbearance and grievance. Your Highness dare not resist." She didn't believe that Chu Qinghuang dared to make things difficult for her in front of so many people for no reason. "Your Highness dare not resist either." Chu Qinghuang's voice was cold, and her eyebrows were like frost. "In that case, slap yourself 10 times. As she said, she walked straight to the flower hall. Others were either shocked or had palpitations. They looked at Feng Wanyu with complicated eyes, wondering if Her Highness the Princess still hated the Feng family. The Feng family and the King Xian were mortal enemies. What was the purpose of Princess Xian calling Feng Wanyu here today? Just to vent for the princess? Feng Wanyu stood stiffly, not believing that Chu Qinghuang, this bitch, would really humiliate her like this. She was the legitimate daughter of the Feng family and a guest invited by Princess Xian herself. Why did she humiliate her in front of so many people? "Miss Feng, why are you still standing there?" Hong Yu passed by her and saw that she was slow to move. She innocently reminded her, "The princess got up too early this morning and was in a bad mood. Please bear with her. Don't make Her Highness the Princess angry at this moment, otherwise the consequences will be disastrous." Got up too early? In a bad mood? She humiliated others at will just because she was in a bad mood? Why? Just because she was the princess? It was simply too much. "Your Highness has been resting in the princess's mansion for some time since he searched the Ling family," Hong Yu said with a smile. "Miss Feng, guess whose family will Your Highness search next?" Feng Wanyu's face was pale, she bit her gums again and again, stood stiffly for a moment, and finally raised her hand to slap herself in the face. Crackling, 10 slaps came down without stopping, and a clear finger mark immediately appeared on her delicate face. It was not swollen, but it was red and hot. The pain was secondary, and the embarrassment was the most unbearable. The princesses and noble ladies who had already sat in the flower hall did not speak for a while. Princess Xian said gently, "Seventh sister is in a bad mood." No, Chu Qing Huang said in a light tone, "I am in a good mood." Princess Xian was silent. She was in a good mood and took it out on others. Fu Kang and Hong Yu stood on the left and right sides of Chu Qing Huang, like door gods, but the point is that these two door gods are particularly handsome and noble, so the ladies in the flower hall can't help but glance at them frequently. Fen Wanyu soon came in, saluted Chu Qing Huang, and then walked to the seat farthest from her with an expressionless face and sat down, cursing in her heart over and over again, wishing to grind Chu Qing Huang to ashes. The lake is full of blooming lotus flowers, which is beautiful. The lakeside scenery is beautiful and the air is fresh. The melodious music slowly sounded at this time. This is the first time that the seventh sister has come to Xianwang Mansion to appreciate flowers. Princess Xian smiled gently, "I have prepared some interesting programs for the seventh sister, I wonder if the seventh sister will be interested." As she said, she turned her head and looked at the center of the lake. Several noble ladies in the flower hall followed her line of sight. The music was as pleasant as the sound of nature. Along with the melodious music, a white figure came down from the sky. The snow-white clothes were pure and elegant, like an immortal descending from another world. The whole person landed on the huge lotus leaf in the lake. The toes tapped lightly, the figure was as light as a swallow, and a piece of gauze that seemed to be looming covered the man's true face, but a few soft and handsome outlines could be vaguely seen. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 208. The ladies looked at the man standing on the lotus leaf in amazement. Who is this person? He can actually stand on the lotus leaf alone. Princess Xian smiled but said nothing. He is a dancer. Hong Yu frowned and blurted out, "The Xian Palace actually keeps a male dancer. The beauty trap is too blatant." After this, Princess Xian's expression suddenly became awkward. She subconsciously glanced at Chu Qing Huang and then smiled faintly, "It's just a performance. He is not a dancer." Madame Gu said that the princess likes handsome men who practice martial arts recently. This man is dressed in white, floating like a fairy, and can dance with a sword on a lotus leaf. Chu Qing Huang will definitely like him. He dances with a sword well. Hong Yu stared at the man standing in the middle of the lake holding a long sword and dancing gracefully. He couldn't help but feel a little excited. It looks like he has practiced for a few days. Fu Kang didn't say anything. He did practice for a few days, just a few days. The color of the rope tied around the waist is not very obvious, and it is a distance away, so it is normal that no one has noticed it. "How dare you show such a clumsy trick to your master?" "Your Highness." Hong Yu turned his head and looked at Chu Qing Huang eagerly, "I saw that he danced with the sword so beautifully, I also want to try it." After the voice fell, more than a dozen pairs of eyes in the flower hall looked at him. Princess Xian smiled kindly and said, "The lotus leaves are light and the water in the lake is deep. If you don't have light skills, it will be very dangerous to step on the lotus leaves without permission. This young master must not take risks." Hong Yu ignored her and looked at Chu Qing Huang, "Your Highness." "Go." Chu Qing Huang said indifferently, "Don't cause trouble." Princess Xian's face changed slightly. "Don't worry, Your Highness." After the words fell, the red figure instantly swooped away like a meteor, and in the blink of an eye it was in the middle of the lake. The noble ladies widened their eyes instantly. "I saw a young man in red spinning in the air, his sleeves fluttering, dazzling like fire, like a blooming red lotus, shining brightly, instantly surpassing the man in white. The man was dancing with a sword in good shape, but someone came towards him and kept spinning in the air above his side, the airflow swaying the red robe, which was really dazzling and dazzling under the sunlight. The man in white froze. Hong Yu didn't know whether he wanted to compete with him or wanted to match red and white, and the two swords combined. After being conceded in the air, he landed gracefully, and his feet landed on the lotus leaf where the man was standing. However, how could a lotus leaf bear the weight of two men? Seeing Hong Yu's toes touching the lotus leaf, the man in white suddenly changed his face. Just as he was about to speak, he realized that the lotus leaf under his feet was sinking rapidly, and he subconsciously began to wave his arms. However, his body lost its support and his center of gravity was unstable. The more he struggled, the faster the lotus leaf sank. Then, with a bang, the man fell into the lake. Water splashed everywhere. The ladies in the flower hall were dumbfounded. Hong Yu stood lightly on the lotus leaf, looking at the place where the man fell in confusion. What happened? How did he fall into the lake? Princess Xian's face was a little ugly. Help, help, the man stretched out his hand to grab the lotus leaf, struggling in the river. When he saw Hong Yu's robe, he subconsciously reached out to pull it. You, pull me up, I can't swim. Can't swim, Hong Yu jumped lightly and easily avoided his clutches. He stood on another lotus leaf and was interested in chatting with him. Isn't your Qinggong very good? How can I not swim? Although I am young, don't lie to me. I really. The body fell into the water and drank a big mouthful of water. Under the control of a strong desire to survive, the man kept scratching the lotus leaf. I really can't swim. Hong Yu saw him so embarrassed and couldn't bear it. With the belief that saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda, he reached out and picked him up, then lightly touched the lotus leaf with his toes, and his body swept away in an instant. Bang! The man was thrown on the ground in the flower hall in an embarrassed manner. The ladies were startled and sat up straight subconsciously. They resisted the urge to step back and all their eyes fell on this man. The veil had been washed away when he fell into the water. The man was soaked like a drowned chicken, his hair was messy, and his clothes were soaked with water, which no longer looked elegant. The sword in his hand should have sunk to the bottom of the lake. As for whether this face was good looking or not, to be honest, no one cared about whether he looked good or not at this time. With this look that had just been pulled out of the water, even if he was really an immortal, he was only in a mess. Hong Yu scratched his head, I really didn't mean it. I just wanted to dance with him, but I didn't expect him to suddenly fall into the lake. At this point, he looked at the man in white and said apologetically, go back and change your clothes quickly. Although it is summer now, it is inevitable that you will catch a cold. It is better to be careful. Princess Xian took a deep breath and said in a faint voice, go back. The man in white said nothing and quickly got up and left. The girls discovered that he was dragging a long ribbon behind him, leaving water stains along the way. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 209. The atmosphere in the flower hall was weird. The ladies were silent, their eyes fell on the tea table in front of them, thinking that the first move of Princess Xian was a failure. It was fine at the beginning, and the man looked good, which meant that he was carefully selected. But who would have thought that the plan would be ruined by the little male favorite beside Chu Qinghuang? Your Highness, I didn't mean it. Hong Yu rubbed against Chu Qinghuang's side, as if admitting her fault, looking pitiful. I really didn't know that the young man didn't know how to swim. Chu Qinghuang didn't say anything, holding the blue and white teacup in her hand. Her expression was as indifferent as snow. Your Highness is angry. Hong Yu carefully looked at her expression. After returning, can't I let your Highness deal with it? The corners of the ladies' mouths twitched, thinking that Her Highness the Princess usually gets along with her male favorites like this. Although the young man in red is indeed beautiful and delicate, but, Your Highness, the princess, the girl of about 14 or 15 years old opposite said, frowning slightly, as if begging for mercy, that, I just saw this young man just wanting to dance with the man just now. It doesn't seem like he is deliberately causing trouble. Your Highness, please don't be angry with him. Hong Yu raised his eyes and looked at the pink-dressed girl who had just laughed at him. She had a beautiful face, fair and flawless skin, a pair of clear and clean eyes, and a bit of tenderness between her eyebrows, looking very cute. At this time, the little girl looked at Chu Qing Huang with a bit of nervousness and expectation in her eyes. Hong Yu sighed. She is really a naive little girl who doesn't understand the world, as clean as a piece of rice paper. You should apologize to Princess Xian, Chu Qing Huang said. Her voice was so light that no emotion could be heard. Hong Yu reluctantly said oh, turned to look at Princess Xian, and was about to speak, but Princess Xian had already raised a gentle smile. It doesn't matter, it was originally to present a show for the princess. If it's messed up, it's messed up. If His Highness is not angry, others will be even less angry. Hong Yu couldn't help but sigh again. Listen, Princess Xian is still better. Look at Princess Chu Tianyan, who was killed by her husband with a sword before she could make trouble, and concubine Duan in the palace, who couldn't even coax her own daughter. Look at how good Princess Xian's self-control is, she can still smile so gently even when she was slapped in the face. Hong Yu admired her in her heart, and naturally had to compliment her. The princess is beautiful and kind, and she is generous, so she will naturally not care about me, a small servant. What else can Princess Xian say? Luckily at this time, several maids outside came in with iced watermelon and sour plum juice, added tea to each noble lady, and served fruit plates, tea snacks, and iced sour plum juice. I've always wanted to invite seventh sister to come and sit with me, but there have been many things going on in the court recently, and seventh sister is busy with her affairs, so I never found a chance. Princess Xian smiled and spoke in a familiar tone, as if she was treating an old friend for many years. Today I finally have time, please stay here for a while, so that we can have a chance to talk to seventh sister more about our inner thoughts. Chu Qing Huang picked up the bamboo stick in the fruit plate, forked a piece of watermelon, turned around and put it to Fu Kang's mouth, who was kneeling beside him. Open your mouth. Fu Kang opened his mouth silently and ate the watermelon obediently. After eating, he did not forget to thank him. Thank you, master. Hong Yu squatted on the other side. I want it too. All for you. Chu Qing Huang pushed the whole fruit plate in front of him. Don't talk if you can't finish it. This scene really looks like a picture of a man hugging left and right, enjoying the blessing of having all the women, and the faces of the noble ladies present were stiff. It's simply unbearable to watch, unbearable to watch. They came here today just to see how she flirts with her male favorite shamelessly. Princess Xian maintained a smile on her face, feeling that her cheeks and mouth corners were about to freeze, but looking at the absurd scene in front of her, she still couldn't keep calm. Even before Chu Qing Huang came here, she had prepared herself mentally, but the impact of what she saw was far greater than what she imagined. Without seeing it with one's own eyes, no one knew that Chu Qing Huang was so absurd in private. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 210. Chu Qing Huang's tone was indifferent. I happen to have nothing to do today. As long as you are free, I will accompany you. Qin Yunzu, the legitimate daughter of the Qin family, smiled and said, Your Highness, the eldest princess, is very busy with affairs. How can we and other women in the boudoir compare with her? Your Highness is free, so naturally we are also free. It just so happens that today, with the help of His Highness, we have the opportunity to have a good time, enjoy the beautiful view of Lianhu Lake at the princess's residence. The Qin family is the queen's natal family, and Qin Yunzu and King Xian are cousins. This sentence sounds like a joke, but also to draw closer to Chu Qinghuang. Yes, this lotus lake was carefully taken care of by the princess's sister-in-law. Normally, we might not be able to see it even if we want to see it. Chu Yongxian, the concubine of Kang Jun Prince's mansion, said, as if it was true. Jiao, he said, it is only through the light of Her Highness the eldest princess that we are lucky enough to be invited here. I will definitely sit with Her Highness for a while. You say this as if I usually fail in life, Princess Xian scolded with a smile. If you want to see the lotus in the future, please tell me and I will prepare fresh melon and fruit tea for you. Chu Yongxian said, then do I take it seriously? Princess Xian glared at her, can I still coax you? Chu Yongxian pursed her lips and smiled. It's a pity that the man just now destroyed some of the beautiful scenery. The little princess of Prince Rong's mansion frowned slightly, her eyes fell on the place where the man just fell into the water, and her tone was quite regretful. The lotus leaves must have been damaged a lot. As soon as these words came out, the atmosphere froze slightly. Which pot is not opened and lifted? Princess Xian's expression paused slightly, then she smiled nonchalantly and said, it's an accident, don't take it too seriously. The little princess hummed, her eyes fell on Hong Yu's face. With admiration and yearning on her face, the qinggong that the young master just showed seems to be very powerful. Did Her Highness the princess teach you? Hong Yu raised his eyes to look at her, wanting to tell her that qinggong cannot be learned in a day or two. How could it be taught by a princess? But thinking of the little girl covering her face with a fan just now, he still nodded, that's right. After a pause, his eyes became a little more playful, she is younger than me, right? Is that what you called me, young master? Don't be rude, a woman next to her scolded, this is the young princess of Prince Rong's mansion. Oh, it turns out to be the young princess of Prince Rong's mansion. Hong Yu thought for a while and looked at the little princess in pink. What's your name? The ladies were surprised. In front of Her Royal Highness the eldest princess, he actually dared to ask another woman her maiden name. Aren't you afraid that the ill-tempered eldest princess will go back and beat him to pieces? My name is Chu Yunyeo. The little girl didn't seem to think too much. Where are you, master? My name is Hong Yu, Hong, Fei Yu. The expressions of the ladies became more and more subtle, even a little stiff, and they kept looking at Chu Qinghuang, for fear that she would suddenly stand up and crack her whip. This little boy darling really doesn't know how to write the word death, does he? Her Royal Highness the princess is still here, and he actually dares to flirt with other little girls, without distinguishing between men and women, even telling each other their names. And this little girl is no ordinary person, but a royal princess. What does he want to do? There are no rules at all. Your Highness. Hong Yu turned to look at Chu Qinghuang, lowered her voice and said, the little princess of Prince Rong's mansion is very cute. Cute. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyes to look at her and nodded casually, so. It's nothing. Hong Yu coughed lightly, I just think she's cute. Chu Qinghuang picked up the teacup and brought it to her mouth. She paused slightly, sniffed the tea, and then took a sip calmly. Opposite her, Feng Wanyu lowered her head, as if she didn't care what was happening in the flower hall. She was holding a bamboo stick in her hand, eating fruits and melons quietly alone. She ate slowly and seemed a little distracted, not knowing what she was thinking. In the eyes of others, she was obviously depressed because she felt embarrassed because she had just been slapped 10 times in public by the eldest princess. Moreover, the Feng family and Prince Xian's palace were sworn enemies. Among the women invited by Princess Xian today, except for the eldest daughter, she was unhappy. Except for the princess and Feng Wanyu, almost all of them were members of Prince Xian's palace. In Princess Xian's view, Prince Kang's palace and Prince Rong's palace were both members of the royal family and should have been one family. Chu Qing Huang is the ancestor that everyone is eager to support and coax, so naturally he will not be left out. So Fen Wanyu naturally became the isolated one. So it's normal for her to be incompatible with other people. Maybe Princess Xian called her here just to snub and humiliate her. Who knew that she would actually come? Chu Qing Huang put down the teacup in his hand. Fen Wanyu raised her head and glanced over. She saw the teacup placed by Chu Qing Huang on the table. A cold, triumphant look quickly passed through her eyes. She then narrowed her eyes, stood up and said, "I'm feeling a little unwell, I would like to say goodbye first, and I hope that the princess and the eldest princess will allow me to do so." Princess Xian looked up at her and said with concern, "Are you not feeling well? What's wrong? Do you need a doctor to come and take a look?" "No, thank you very much for your kindness." Princess Fen Wanyu forced a smile and nodded to everyone, "I'll take my leave first. You all have a good time." No one stopped her. Fen Wanyu walked around the tea table and was about to walk out of the flower hall when suddenly a young boy's exclamation came from behind her, "Your Highness." Chu Qing Huang suddenly raised her hand to cover her heart, her brows furrowed, a wisp of black blood spilled from the corner of her mouth, her face was as pale as paper. Hong Yu quickly stuffed a pill into her mouth. The noble ladies were instantly shocked. "Your Highness, the eldest princess. What's going on? Your Highness has been poisoned." How is this possible? Who poisoned him?" "Someone. Come quickly." Princess Xian turned pale and shouted angrily, "Go get the doctor right away. Now, hurry up." The scene was in chaos. Fu Feng. Fu Ying, Fu Kang stood up, his voice sinister and cold, "Watch over the lakeside flower hall, no one present today is allowed to leave."